Hello, and welcome everybody. This is the debut episode of the much anticipated DMR podcast. Obviously, we've got myself here, Martin, we've got Richie here.
What's up?
And we've also got Del here.
Hi.
Enthusiastic stuff. We kind of made this podcast just because Michael's been bitching about it for so long that he's always,
Such a
whenever
bitch.
we give out about his podcast, he's always giving out, well, why don't you boys do something? So I decided there a couple of weeks ago, I got in touch with Del and Richie and just threw up a little group thing saying, you boys want to do podcasts this year? And they're like, yeah. So that's kind of where it born from. So as you can see here, got Richie and Del. So we're breakdown of the kind of show is going to be, we're going to talk about a little bit of news, and then we're going to move into previews, and then we've got a little segment at the end, which is just Jenga pieces. So we've each came up with one player. If you took that player out of the person's team, then that team's going to be way the worse off for it. So that's kind of what we got lined up for you guys.
Yeah, so lads, let's jump into some news here. First thing I was gonna bring up was obviously the news of Adrian Peterson getting cut, which obviously would hurt a certain particular individual in this group here. So it was obviously a bit of a surprise move, just because he didn't really have a whole lot of depth behind Adrian Peterson. So I think it came as a bit of a surprise, because you figured he would have stayed there and be a nice little mentor to all these other young running backs that are on the roster. So
the thought of Adrian Peterson being a mentor I find it hilarious.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, no, I was going to kind of move it on there anyways. I was going to obviously go to Richie here and get his raw thoughts on it.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprising one. As you said, there's not a whole lot other than him. He seemed to be the number one back this year, and I was like, right, I like it. I think he's going to do well. But at the same time, I'm not surprised. He's old. He's had a couple of bad seasons. It's not a shocker that he's gone. But it stings that little bit, because we definitely could have done with him on the team. But I think there's a couple of risky players that I can throw in instead that might put up some numbers.
You obviously have a different view on Adrian Peterson getting cut down. As I see you have Antonio Gibson straight into the lineup. So
Well, yeah, I mean, I skipped over AP in the draft and went for Gibson because there was a good bit of noise about him. I thought maybe he'd be okay, and looks like he might be an OB1 now. Yeah, I'm happy enough now. Gibson's stepping into a role. It could take him a while to sort of take off, but I reckon by probably week 3 or 4 he could be well settled in there. Yeah, I've high hopes for Gibson.
yeah, and then obviously it was kind of expected to happen, seeing as we're getting so close to the season. But there was obviously a start of run on kickers for the few people that actually needed to get kickers still. So I started it all off the other day by getting Chris Boswell from the Steelers. Then Michael picked up Dan Daly. John picked up Ryan Suckup. And then the only person, and Hannah was forced into a move because her guy, the gay guy, got dropped and she picked up Matt Prater instead. So no, I don't think there needs to go into it too much there. There were always going to happen. Positions need to be filled. I think Rob's the only guy left who needs to pick up a kicker. So any of you guys want to add something to it there? Or
I don't think kickers are that big. It's one of those things that can make or break a game if a kicker has a bad game. But until they do that, they don't really make a massive difference unless you've got one of the top 2-3 kickers who's guaranteed to put up decent numbers every game. Kickers aren't really going to do a whole lot.
Yeah, I think next year's draft I'll probably not take a kicker so early. But yeah.
I can't really comment on that.
No, next year I'll be well prepared for the running backs. I think all my running backs were gone by round 4. Kind of screwed up my list. Hold my hand up. It's my fault. We'll see how it plays out, though.
yeah, and I think we might need a moment of silence here and pour one out for poor Larry Fitzgerald. He got dropped as part of that kicker run on kickers that hit free agency. So
He was done dirty.
Larry's he's a bit of a cult hero in this group. So I think
He's a great guy.
he is.
He's a good football player. He does semi-decently every year, but he's a great guy.
Yeah, like he's guaranteed to catch you 50, 60 balls a year. Whether what he can do with them now, with being 36 years old, that's a different story. But he's still a reliable target, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on somebody's team this year at some point.
Probably going to be me. Every year. Him and Frank Gore.
Spoiler alert.
The chances of those two guys coming to me are pretty high. And they're both in their mid to late 30s.
So then I think we might just touch on some actually real football news that isn't related to the Dris Bowl. As we kind of just found out there only a couple of hours ago, your QB, Dell, signed a big, massive contract in real life, a 4-year, $160 million extension, which puts him, I think, only second to Mahomes now as the highest paid quarterback in the league. So you must be happy to get that tied down before the season started.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was in contract talks. I was more worried about Dalvin Cook, so I wasn't really paying attention to that. But yeah, the fact that they got it done shows a lot of confidence. He's going to be confident. Hopefully he won't just sort of sit back and go, deal's done.
Got paid now. Don't need to
got paid. Don't need to do nothing. So I don't think he will. I think he's going to have another good year. Probably even do better than last year. Confident in my quarterback. Although I did pick up Gardner Minshew because he's going to have to throw the ball all the time. So I figure might as well.
You got to get that mustache on your team.
Yeah, I've got the mullet. I've got the mullet. So
just gotta shave this bit and you're good. You're golden.
Yeah, I'm considering it. I'm gonna take a picture and Photoshop it out and see what it looks like first.
Yeah, I think with him signing that contract as well, it's going to kind of reset the market back to some normality after the outlier that was Mahomes' contract earlier in the year or earlier in the summer when he signed the 12-year extension. So I think that's just going to be an anomaly. So
did you say 12-year extension?
Well, he got I think it was end up it's going to be like a 12-year total contract, but Mahomes signed way back when the $500 million contract.
That's not bad.
$500 million.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So I think I never thought that was going to be the new way of doing things, but nice to see it was set back so quickly. So
yeah, think about it. Like that's if that it's I think Ireland was a 10-year deal. If that's a 10-year deal, $50 million a year for 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't even understand that kind of money. So I mean,
yeah,
I know it's lots. But just how much money that is beyond me. It's crazy.
Yeah, that stuff, all right.
So happy he got paid, and hopefully it'll be a boost from the season, and he'll push on.
Yeah, and Lamar Miller just got dropped from the Patriots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I did see that. All right. Yeah.
I don't know if that has too big of an impact on our league, but.
Yeah, so me and you could have a few frustration weeks. Seeing as I've got Sony Michel, you got Damien Harris, and the way Bill Belichick is with his running backs, we're probably going to both not play them the right weeks, and they'd be both sitting on our benches the wrong weeks we wanted to start them.
James White, I think it was 2 years ago, and I just couldn't play him on the right week. Last week, great week. This week, playing against a worse run defense. Surely he's going to get he get less of the ball.
One final thing before the game start. Any big trades, any big drops that you think are going to happen this week?
Well, John has to drop. He still has to drop another player because he has to pick up a defense, but I don't think there's going to be any earth-shattering drops on that. So but I do think there's going to be a big fancy name that'll go down week 1 just because there's been so little training, so little contact. I think somebody's going down.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think there might be a few.
I wouldn't be surprised if a few either, but I definitely think there's going to be one big name that's going to affect somebody.
Yeah, Kamara is already playing through injuries, so once he starts getting hit, you really don't know how those injuries are going to react. He could get hit in the knee, and it might not bother him for the game, and then as soon as he stops moving, it might start swelling up, and might have to go look at it, start repairing things. So he's on medication for his back as well. I mean, played last season through injury. There's only so much you can do. And
I don't know about that. This is how awfully like you want him to be, so you can get Latty Murray in the lineup. Pretty awfully down on Kamara here, so yeah.
I'm just worried about him.
Ulterior motive, I think.
I'm just worried about him. If I was the Saints, I'd probably just drop him, not pay him.
Like for me, I think for my team, I wanted to go with the best rounded team that I could go for. But in doing that, like, I got fantastic quarterback, fantastic running backs, fantastic wide receivers, great tight end, great kicker, great defense. But there's not a lot of depth after that. It was kind of like, right, sacrifice the depth in certain positions for better in other positions.
Yeah, see, like I was going to make that, teasing a little segment we have later on. We're going to go with a Jenga. It's going to be called a Jenga piece. So we're going to each name out one in each person's team. If you took that player out, that they would collapse. And kind of when I was going through that, I was kind of leaning on what you were saying there. I think everybody has a good, solid starting lineup, but nobody has great depth, I don't think. Everybody's kind of like one or two injuries away from just being absolutely screwed.
I think as well, when you take out the, say, 20 players from the two teams that now have a starting lineup on top of the original 10 that we already had. So with those extra two teams, that's 20 good players, solid players that would have been sitting on bench.
Yeah, that's made a difference, big time. When you start looking at.
Yeah, going back to your guys' matchup, one of the things I think that stands out the most is obviously your two QBs going at it Thursday night. Could have a big bearing on the overall matchup.
Yeah, and they're going to have a slugfest. They're going to just keep throwing.
But then again, like we were saying earlier on, teams could be slow out the blocks for the first week or two, so it could be like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's 35-32 to somebody, or 35-30 to somebody, or something like that.
I think those two teams, they're going to want to put on a show. They're going to want to, like, say Mahomes. Mahomes is going to want to show that it wasn't a one-off season that he just did well on. He's going to want to prove why he just got paid. He's going to want to put on a show. And then Deshaun Watson, he's going to know that. He's going to know that, like, Mahomes is the one to go after this year. So he's going to do his best to do it.
Yeah, sure.
I'm
like
really
Watson
excited about that matchup.
Yeah, Watson was drafted two places after Mahomes, so that just links to the rivalry even more between those two.
Yeah. I really like this matchup this week. I think there's some good pairings there that could go real well, or it could go real bad.
What do you think, Dale? What are your thoughts on your matchup at Richie?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Thursday night. Obviously, I won't be getting a whole pile of sleep for the early hours of the morning. Yeah, really looking forward to that. It's hard to know what Watson's going to do with his new wide receivers. Losing Hopkins could be fairly big to his throwing game. So who knows? Looking forward to seeing him running a couple of touchdowns in, though. I think he's probably gonna be a bigger danger in the red zone this year, I think. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how it pans out. But it is going to be, like Richie says, they're just going to throw so much. It's going to be a delightful way to open the season. At least to get Christian McCaffrey out of the way and Patty Mahomes in the first game. That's what I'm looking at here. I'm thinking they could feasibly put up 60, 65 points between them. And if that happens, I'm not coming back, regardless of what everybody else does. I'm going to be watching the first game with bated breath. Depending on how that goes, I might have some hope out then for the rest of the matchups. But looking forward to seeing how Dalvin Cook is. Got a lot pinned on him. Gibson back into the lineup. He was predicted to have about 5 points. He's up to 13, so seems like his value's gone up. Nuke's questionable, so really don't know what I'm going to do there. Robinson's fit again. Andrews, I think, is going to have an amazing season. So without Hurst this year, it can only be a benefit. Scary Terry, a lot of interest in him. Butker, best kicker in the league. You know it. You know it, Richie.
Justin Tucker.
This is where it's at. Everybody's talking about the quarterbacks. This is where it's at. Kickers. Butker versus Tucker. That's where it's at. So that's what I'm really going to be keeping an eye on this week.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Scary Terry can do, to be honest.
Michael wasn't too happy when I picked him.
Neither
You say you had a lot of interest in Scary Terry, and you can be honest. It's just Michael was bombarding you with trade requests.
yeah, he was trying to prize him off me, and he was trying to get Gibson as well. And then he realized that he was going to be dependent on Washington, and he didn't like that. And then I realized, hold on a second, I might be dependent on Washington. Do I like that? And to be all right, I'm actually all right. I think Haskins is a better quarterback than he was, and
Michael's a terrible person and ruined his credibility within the league, so shouldn't get traded.
I'm not sure I like you relying on. I don't know. This is another thing. Like, the lineups could easily change between now and next week, but I notice your starting lineup right now, and I'm not sure. I'm in love with Scary Terry and relying on 2 Washington football players. That was another point I had written down. That I didn't like your reliance on 2 players from that team this week, but obviously it's a clean slate this season, so we don't know what's going to happen.
I think the way it is with Scary Terry, Haskins is probably going to throw a lot of interceptions, but hopefully he'll just, hit him with a few fairly long ones. It could be big play dependent. Gibson, really don't know what's going to happen with him. If he comes out of the blocks, then it could be good, but it could also be very, very bad. Like if Laddie Murray does become the RB1, then he's obviously going to go in for Gibson, and then it'll be between Gibson and Scary Terry for the slot position. So Matt Breida could have a decent season. He's not going to have a good first week, but he might fit into that offense in a nice sort of a niche kind of running backs, wide receiver to kind of position. My bench is fairly light. My bench is fairly light, like everybody else's, I suppose. There's a couple of prospects, but like Pittman, I don't know if Pittman's going to do anything. I never heard of him. I don't even know what he looks like. So.
Yeah, for my team, I think everyone that's starting is going to do well. I think there's not a whole lot of downside to my starting lineup, but it's the same. Like, my bench is grim is one word I would definitely use. Like, AP doesn't have a team anymore. He's going to have to go. Darrell Henderson, probably not going to do much at all. Probably going to have to go. Hunter Renfro, who knows? Although I do have Tom Brady.
Yeah, my only question mark for your team is your flex. Sterling Shepard would be the only person, and maybe you're thinking the same thing, that you might swap in, swap out at some stage.
Yeah, same. Yeah, hopefully he'll do well, but I'm not too sure.
Well, I don't know. I'm probably the only one who can give a prediction here for this matchup, am I? Because you 2 guys are obviously going to pick yourselves. So it's on me here to predict.
Don't be too fucking quick with that. No, I have Richie down for a win. I don't think it's going to be an awful beating, but I can't see.
Yeah, cause Sleeper has me winning 60-40, like 60% for me to win.
But then we all know how
it's going to be closer, but
yeah, but look, Mahomes is going to probably outscore Watson. McCaffrey's probably going to outscore Cook. Ingram's probably going to outscore Gibson. Hopkins, Nuke mightn't even be playing. He might not be fit. So if that's the case, then I'm definitely probably not gonna win. So no, I got Richie down for a win. So
I think you just convinced me I was kind of half on the fence, but I think your own speech there, Del, has convinced me to go against it.
I mean, that's just the numbers, they don't lie.
We all know how I feel about Michael. He's a terrible guy. So I'll talk about the team. I think he's got a fairly middle-of-the-road team. I don't think there's any big standouts that are going to do really well. I don't think there's anyone that's going to do overly bad. It's just kind of meh.
Julio Jones. He's got Julio Jones. He's going to...
Julio Jones would be considered a standout player, I would say.
I'll be going with Julio Jones.
Like, Julio catches and runs a good bit, but he doesn't score all that often. Like, he is a good player, and he'll put up some numbers, but he's not going to, like...
He's not going to throw the ball a lot this year, though. They're definitely going to throw the ball a lot this year, and I think Julio Jones is probably the standout player he has.
I don't know. Matt's getting older, and, like, judging by last season, he had a bad season last season.
Mm-hmm.
One of the notes I had down for this one was the two QBs I feel like have tough matchups. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there's not a whole lot of touchdowns between Rodgers and Prescott, because Prescott's going to be going up against the Rams, and Rams obviously have Jalen Ramsey, so he's going to expect him to lock down Amari Cooper. Rodgers, I wouldn't say he struggles, but he usually has a tough time in Minnesota, which is a big difference. But down again, with no full crowds this year, you don't know how much of an impact, for better or worse, that's going to have on particular teams. But
yeah, I think he'll go for more of a run game against Minnesota than he would for throwing. I don't think he'll throw as much. And again, he had a pretty an all right season last year. Wasn't great.
No, like I think he only had one real standout week last year against the Raiders, where I think he scored 4 touchdowns in the game. Other than that, he was scoring 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns. We were in a lot of tight games last year, and a lot of them, if he didn't need, he just about did enough in games. So the other thing I had down here, I think it's going to come down to the flex and defenses for this. I think the Steelers defense could go to town on poor Johnny Dines week 1, because they were a mean defense last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they got pick 6, maybe an interception of fumbles. So you're talking maybe 20 points for the Steelers. And I don't know if Hannah's planning on sticking with Jonathan Taylor, but between Jonathan Taylor and Raheem Mostert, Mostert could be the number 1 back in 49ers week 1, or he mightn't get any touches at all. It's such an unpredictable backfield at the 49ers, and Jonathan Taylor, I don't think it's really been definitive between him and Marlon Mack, who's the number 1. He could be split carries, or again, Marlon Mack might get a big workload week 1 just because he's been there, done that. He might want to go with Mack just to start off with the season, and then slowly ease in the rookie Jonathan Taylor, so he mightn't see a lot of work at all. So that's where I kind of have this coming down to. I think they're pretty evenly matched in every other position.
Yeah, I don't like the Saints against Tampa Bay. I think Tom Brady is going to have a real chip on his shoulder about moving there, and I think he's really going to want to prove a point when he gets there. I think he's going to want to prove it was me, it wasn't the Patriots.
You expect him to go to town on that Saints defense, do you?
Yeah, if he goes ham, I think he will absolutely tear that defense apart. Now, they're good defense. They're very good. But I think if Tom Brady decides to be Tom Brady, he's going to go ham on them. Now, still not going to start him
again. Just get 53.76 points in week 7 last year.
That would probably be in the game against the Raiders, possibly.
Yeah, that's right, 53.76 points.
Who did that?
Aaron Rodgers last year in week 7 against the Raiders. Fucking hell. Sorry, I just had to make sure that the stats weren't lying to me. What do you think about Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
I
think he went too early.
Michael loves his rookies, so it just remains to be seen whether he'd be right or wrong. Everybody in the fantasy world thinks he's going to be worth that first round pick, but again, we won't know until Thursday night probably.
Man, Kansas last year, I think I took Damian Williams as my second pick last year. He looked like a shoe-in. All the reports were he was a shoe-in. He did fucking nothing. He did nothing for me. Kept chopping and changing. He was in and out. Then I think he had a couple of good games towards the end of the season. After our season was finished, he started to play a bit. So, I don't know, he looks really good, but again, week 1, come out of the blocks, happy days. If it doesn't go right for him, could be a few weeks before he starts getting his feet on the ground. So that could be, I think he might have reached a little bit for CEH.
Yeah, I don't think it would have ever got back to him in the second round, though, so I think if he wanted him, he had to get him there.
So who else has he got? He's got David Johnson in, he's got Julio Jones, DJ Chark, got Waller. I mean, not a bad team. Take it over mine.
It's not a bad team, but it's not a fantastic team. And now, honestly, I think that team will get him to the playoffs. I genuinely do.
He's got a high floor here. Don't know what his ceiling's going to be. If CEH explodes, then he could have a high ceiling as well. But again, Rodgers, he could have 53 points in a week. He could have 15. You just don't know what he's going to be like.
But at the same time, the one thing we're not talking, like, I genuinely think Hannah has a good team.
It's a really good team.
Like, she's got a solid team, and some of them are risky, and like you said, someone might get a lot of plays one week, someone might not. You don't really know, but at the same time, on her bench, she's not got a lot of bad stuff on her bench either.
She's no depth at running back, but she's plenty of depth at wide receiver.
Exactly, yeah. And like, she's one of the few people who has some sort of depth at least. Like, I like Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those 3 wide receivers go into the flex position before the week starts, or before week 1 starts.
Tony Pollard, Zeke's handcuff, or is there anybody ahead of him between him and Zeke?
Tony Pollard's clear number 2 there in Dallas. I'd expect he'd probably get a decent bit of
volume, yeah.
The sleeper prediction is that Hannah wins by 5, so very, very close. I think I agree. Like, Hannah's got a solid team that some of them could put up some pretty cool numbers, or pretty good numbers. Michael's got a decent team that will do all right. I think they're both very close, but I think Hannah's that little bit better. I think, especially week 1, she will do that little bit better. I think the only thing that might let her down is her defense.
What do you think, though? You go Michael or Hannah?
Tom Brady on his debut for Tampa Bay could be up for it. So Saints defense I wouldn't be going with. I'm going for Hannah. I think it'll be close, but probably Hannah win.
Well, I actually have Hannah as well, so it's a clean sweep for Hannah. I just think
for the first
I think it's going to be very close, but I think Hannah's going to have that rookie look as well.
Yeah.
She's anything like the previous Hines that debut season, then she's going to have a good year.
Yeah.
There's a nice little thing. And when I noticed here, both our QBs are thrown to both our number 1 wide receivers. So I've got Matthew Stafford thrown to her number 1 Kenny Galladay, and she's got Russell Wilson thrown to my number 1 number 2 wide receiver Tyler Lockett. So I mean, both those teams kind of goes off. They kind of like cancel each other out, so they will. So I kind of found that like an interesting little nugget. And then the other thing I had is I'm not too sure of my flex. I don't think Opportunity will play, so I'm not sure who I'm going to stick in there yet. Thinking maybe Stephon Diggs might be in there by the start of week 1, just because I think he could go against the Jets week 1, just to prove like a little finger to the Vikings. I'm thinking Diggs will be in there probably by start next Sunday. But what do you guys think on this? Who do you think's got the edge?
Just looking through here, and it's predicted to be nearly like 65-35 to Shauna. I think it's gonna be much closer than that. I think it's the big slant is that Russell Wilson is projected to score like 8 more points than Stafford. I think that's where the big difference is. Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for that, then we'd be neck and neck.
Yeah, that's like both are good quarterbacks. They're gonna put up good numbers. They always do. They're both solid quarterbacks who you're looking to get 20 points a week solidly out of, no matter what. Saquon's gonna do well, especially against Pittsburgh. Maybe. They're a decent defense, but I think he will do well. Aaron Jones is a bit of a wild card. I think he'll do well, but who knows? And
I think the new guy AJ Dillon is gonna poach goal line work from Jones, which might hurt his, because he scored like 20 plus touchdowns last year, and that's why he did so well last year. Just got sheer volume of touchdowns he got. So I think that's gonna come back down to maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe got 10, 11, 12 touchdowns, and that's nearly half what he had last year. So I think he's due a regression.
Yeah, looking down through it, fairly close. The only thing that she gets over on you is Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz being a solid tight end. Other than that, I think it's all going to be pretty close.
Mm.
Bucks versus New Orleans might be a tough one for you as well.
Yeah, I'm faith in the Buccaneers. Maybe not week one, but they've got a good schedule after that. I just think that when you take out Jameis Winston, who scored 30 picks last year, he's definitely not going to throw 30 picks this year. You imagine that defense is not going to have to be asked to do as much this year as they had last year. And I think they were sneaky good last year, especially against the run. I think they were the number one team against the defense last year. I don't know. I just have a sneaky feeling that they could have a decent year because they've got a good defense overall. So that was my reason for drafting them anyway.
No, that's a very fair point.
What do you think about Matt Stafford? You obviously think he's going to have a decent season.
Yeah, like before he got injured last year, he was a top 5 quarterback in fantasy. So if he can replicate that when I draft him, I think 10th, 11th round, I think I'd be more than happy with that.
Yeah. Like week 1, 32, 15, 14, 28, 11, 34, 27, 27, and then injured. So 9 weeks. He was really good for 9 weeks.
Yeah, like he was like you said, he looked really good last year before getting injured. So I'm just kind of hoping he picks up where he left off.
Yeah, 230 burgers and 227s, 28 in 9 games. So
it's going to be a lot closer because I think Matt Stafford's been very underrated at 17 points this year for that game. Like Chicago, I think he puts up better numbers than that.
Yeah, I was just going to say historically he always has good games against Chicago, so he should have that going for him as well. But my main worry would be Saquon getting shut down by the Steelers, which I could easily see happening. And
that's the problem.
Tight end, I think.
When they know that like you've got one top player who you're always going to use, that's who they're going to go for. So they all know it's Saquon. Giants don't have a whole lot of that going for them.
What do you think of Shauna's team? Like we haven't talked much besides
it says he's more or less healthy. So I hope that gives you confidence. He's more or less healthy. Although he was limping Monday in practice, but he was back Friday and he seemed okay.
Well, that's news to me. So hopefully he's all good next week.
I feel kind of similar about Shauna's team than I do about Michael's. I think it's a good, solid team. They'll put up all right numbers, but I don't think they're anything to write home about. Like, it's a good team. I wouldn't be sad to have it, but like same thing. I think it's a team that could get you to the playoffs. Is it a team that can win a Dris ball?
Do you think Edelman's value this year has gone up because he has a new quarterback, or do you think it's gone down?
I think that's going to be a big one. I think that's going to be like we mentioned earlier, the Jenga. I think that's where it's going to be here, because if he has the relationship that he's joking that he has with Cam Newton already, if he plays like a young Edelman, I think he can put up some good numbers.
Yeah, there's nothing capable of putting up numbers.
Just being Julian Edelman and making jokes about how they're amazing friends and trying to get picked up on fancy, he could put up 4 or 5 points a game and do absolutely nothing.
Well, like week 5 he had 19 points, week 8 20, week 13 18, week 14 17 points. So he's capable of putting up those decent numbers. Like that's unbelievable for your flex.
Whereas a lot of question marks, I think. Eckler, Keenan Allen, Philly Rivers isn't there anymore. Is Keenan Allen going to get the same volume of targets that he had when Philly Rivers was there? Is Eckler now going to be facing more 8-man boxes because teams don't respect the rookie quarterback, or Tyrod? Teams not going to respect him as much as they would have with Philly Rivers, so he might face more stacked boxes, especially if the young rookie comes in early, if Tyrod struggles.
True.
But I think we should wrap this up with some predictions. So, Richie, who are you going for?
I think if my guess is correct, if Matt Stafford plays as good as a game as I think he's going to play, and if Chris Godwin gets those targets from Tom Brady, who's going to have, in my opinion, who's going to really go for it this week, I think you're going to get it. If that happens, I think you'll get the win this week. If not, I think Shauna's team are solid enough that they'll all put up semi-decent numbers and it'll add up.
Yeah, I think I'm obviously biased, but I do think it'll come down to if Stafford gets 20, 25 points. If he can match Russell Wilson, I think it should be okay. But again, I'm big worried about Saquon. If Saquon could easily get mightn't hit double-digit points if the Steelers have his way with him. So I'll go with myself, but I think it's going to be less than about 5-10 points in it.
Yeah.
I have Morty for the win, and then I have underneath it close. So
We're all in lockstep here, boys.
Yeah, no, I took a look at it and I thought Morty's going to win this, but I really thought it was going to be really good. And again, I think it comes down to Matt Stafford. I think that's low from him. I think he's got real big potential if he's fit and hungry. Then that's 17 points. He could add an extra 10 points to that. So yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. It comes down to Matt Stafford versus Russell Wilson.
I have a hot take for this one. I would not be surprised if John has a different quarterback starting come week 1. Carson Wentz is questionable. I don't know if he supposedly has a soft tissue injury, so I don't know if John wants to rely on that going into week 1. So I would not. That's a hot take I have.
I think he's going to have to. I think he's going to have to, at least just for cover. I don't think
John's not the kind of guy to carry 2 QBs, so I would not be surprised if he drops Wentz for someone like a Jared Goff or something like that. But obviously, you guys, what do you think, Richie, of the team's matchups overall? Who you got?
I'm just looking here. They're very, very close. Even though it's predicted to be Johners by 71 to 29.
Well, I think that's once John sticks a defense in there, they'll even up, because obviously that's lopsided because of John still not having a defense in there. So you're talking 6-7 points to be added in.
That's it. Like I think once you throw in that defense, I think like next to nothing in the difference. Like I think it's going to be a very, very close match, which I like, because the Battle of the Johns being a close match, that's creates some friction. Who's the number 1 John?
I've jokingly stuck in the graphic there, Battle of the Johns, winner keeps their first name, so I don't know if the 2 boys will be down for that.
Yeah, John went for he went and basically drafted the way I drafted last year. He picked Elliott and he got Odell Beckham as well. Kind of the 2 of them just fell roughly around the same time. I think John was picking 4th as well, so I'm seeing a bit of a pattern. But yeah, Zeke last year came off no preseason, took him about 4 games to really get up to speed. Odell Beckham took him 19 games to get up to speed. He was so bad for me last year. It's indescribable how bad it was. I mean, I got burned big time with Odell Beckham. I picked him over Julio Jones last year. That's actually just giving me a headache thinking about that. But this year, yeah, he can't do as bad as last year. He has to do better. He was so bad. Let's just have a look at his stats from last year, see if I'm right. He had 1 good week 2, and then week 12 against Miami was decent. For the end of it, he got double figures in the last 2, but there's so many 3s and 4s and 6s and 7s. It's horrendous. So he definitely has to do better this year. So I think Odell Beckham's going to have a bit of a bounce back. Carson Wentz looks like he's going to be fit for week 1, but even if he is fit, probably not going to be spectacular. Zeke, who knows? Like, he could start slow like he did last year, but he's solid. He's a good pick. Kenyon Drake is questionable, nearing a return to practice, some kind of foot injury. So if he takes Kenyon Drake out, he's got Johnson, Lindsay, Bryce Love, who is probably going to get good volume. He seems like a workhorse running back at Washington, so he'll probably get a decent bit of volume. He's not going to get a lot of points. I think John's going to struggle this week against John.
Yeah, I think Kamara is going to be a big player in it. Like we were talking about earlier, if he's healthy and if he's
not healthy
willing to play.
He's not healthy. He's getting injections in his back for inflammation and pain. He's played through injury all last season. He's not healthy. It's just a question of how healthy he is. And I don't think he's coming out with 18 points this week. But at the same time, I've got John O'Brien down for the win, controversially. I don't think Carson Wentz is going to do well. Kenyon Drake not playing. Odell Beckham's he's a mystery this season. Could be good, could be bad. James Conner, I hope he does well, but he missed a lot of last season, didn't he? So yeah, but like when he plays well for the most part. But you don't know. It could be 25 points, could be 5 points from him.
I think it's going to be closer than it says here. But I think Johners might have it. Just because John's got some solid running backs, some solid wide receivers, but it's got literally no defense, not a great kicker, not a great tight end, and his tight end's playing New Orleans. Carson Wentz might not even play. Yeah, I have to give it to Johners based on you've got a solid team who are probably all going to play.
Yeah, you think Hannah has the best rounded team? I think Hurricanes have the best depth. I think they have decent depth at both running back and wide receiver. But again, I'm gonna have to agree with you, but I do think that Johners will pull off. Well, not so much. I suppose it would be seen as an upset, beating the defending champ week 1. But I just think he is.
That's his first ever game. It would be a huge upset.
Yeah, his first ever game of the Dris Bowl versus the reigning champ.
So much pressure on John. Oh, I'd hate to be John right now.
But yeah, again, I have to agree with GT Boys. I think Johners will pull it off and create the mini upset.
I'm gonna stop agreeing with each other, lads. Jesus, this is no fun.
There's no controversy here.
I think Connor's got a lot to prove this season. Connor's quite literally shit the bed 2 seasons in a row. I think he's gonna want to prove something, and I think Rob's gotten lazy.
Okay.
He doesn't even have a kicker.
That'll change. I'm not too worried about that. Him or John not having a defensive kicker, that'll be sorting by starting next week. I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah.
An essay on the statistical relevance of kickers in the NFL fantasy football draft.
Like John Brown might be good, might not. Marquise Brown, same thing. Might be good, might not. See, he drafted all the Browns. I think that was more just so he could have 3 players named Brown. I don't think that was because of their playing ability.
When did he pick? What round did he get John Brown in? Because he's down here as wide receiver 19. Is week to week, he's getting nearly 10 points every week. Some weeks 15. He got 27 one week, so he's got the potential for a big week. I don't dislike John Brown.
Really hits it. His one saving grace is Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson's going to win him games. It's that simple.
He's predicted to be the highest scoring QB this week, and I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Especially going up against Cleveland. I know 2 things I wrote down about this matchup is what kind of volume is Lev Bell going to get, because him and Adam Gase have been locking heads all these last couple of weeks in these training camps. And I would not be surprised if Adam Gase, being the beehole that he is, jobs Lev Bell out of 20-25 touches, which he should be getting, and he gives 10 touches to Frank Gore, just to spite Lev Bell. I would not be surprised at that. And then obviously that would affect Rob big time because he needs volume, because he hasn't got a lot of depth there outside of Lev Bell, Miles Sanders. He's got a lot of question marks. Jarrett McKinnon, I don't know. Just somebody might feed in 49ers. AJ Dillon remains to be seen what kind of role he's going to have with the Packers. Cam Akers, rookie. Joshua Kelly, rookies. We're not exactly sure what their roles are going to be. So,
if Frank Gore seems to be playing the way they say he's playing, that's amazing. And they could easily turn around to Lev Bell and be like, well, he's getting paid half what you're getting paid, and he's doing double the work. Why aren't you doing that? And Lev Bell will throw a temper tantrum and throw his toys out of the pram, as he fucking always does. So it'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, he's too mental for me. Can't predict what way he's gonna react from week to week. So,
yeah. And on the other side of things, Matt Ryan, as I said earlier, had a pretty bad year last year, and he wrecked my head last year. Todd Gurley, the man's got no knees.
I know you were saying that Connor's up for revenge this year, but then you see we've got a point to prove this year, but then you see him doing what he did last week in that trade, and I just earlier on the week, whenever it was, and
Yeah,
it does not fill me with confidence that he does not end up in the Marina again this year.
What do we think about Todd Gurley? Do we like Julio Jones for Todd Gurley?
No. Simple as.
Don't think that's going to pay off, but who knows? If Will Fuller stays fit, he could be a beast.
That's the second point I came down made a note of. I think Will Fuller could end up being a sneaky winner for. He could contribute to being the difference between winning and losing, just because he can torch defenses. He could score 2 60-70-yard touchdowns, no bother.
Yeah.
But he's dependent on Todd Gurley and Will Fuller to be fit. I would not like to be dependent on Todd Gurley and Will Fuller to be fit.
Yeah.
No.
And he's also dependent on Matt Ryan, who some weeks will put up good numbers and will do you really well, but other weeks will absolutely shit the bed, and you'll be, ironically, Shaq Ryan. Last season, he had a fantastic start to the season, and then blew it for 2 games. Like, 19, all right. 26, all right, fair enough. He's going to the 15, no. And 35, 37, nearly 38 points. That's absolutely amazing. So it's like, yeah, of course he's going to be your starting QB. And then minus 1.4, and then 0. That's like, that's horrible numbers. But he never really bounced back from that.
Mm.
He had like 17, 18, 4, 15. 25 is all right. 23 is all right. Then back down to 14, 15. So he had a good start, but then quickly went downhill. It's like he had one really bad game. I think he got injured that game and missed the next one. So I think that really shook him, and then he just never bounced back from it.
Will Fuller in week 5 against Atlanta had 40 points. Every other week, you're talking 7.9, 5, 7, 2.8, 5.4. You had a 0.6 one week, and then 3 weeks with nothing. A 16, a 0.8, a nothing, an 8.1, and a 1.1, and nothing to end the season. So that's not the wide receiver I would like to be depending on to fill in for Julio Jones.
Yeah.
But no, I think there is some. I think Connor might struggle earlier on, but if Lenny Fournette adapts to that thing, if he gets the volume there at Tampa Bay, if he ends up being the number 1 running back, which I think he will, he could end up being pretty decent there, because I just don't think he enjoyed playing for the Jaguars, and I still think he is a decent running back. And then DeAndre Swift, if he ends up becoming the number 1 in Detroit as well, that could end up paying off, because I think Detroit's going to be a decent offense this year. So he ends up coming out of the gap to starting off. Like, if he plays well early on, I think those 2 players might end up being a benefit to Connor, and he could do with one of them, because I just don't rate Jordan Howard, so I don't think he's going to have a good week. I don't think he'll have a good season either, so he needs kind of Lenny Fournette or DeAndre Swift, which I think both are capable of doing, of stepping up, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Howard's cut after a couple of weeks. If one of those 2 lads or both of those lads start playing well.
He missed half the season last year with an injury.
So who do you think has it?
I'm going Rob this week. I just think he has enough to overcome just too many question marks for Connor this week. I don't think Jordan Howard's going to have a good week. I think the Bears are going to get smoked by the Lions, so that could be not great. Todd Gurley, Seahawks, Matt Ryan, Seahawks. It's a tough matchup. I'm going Rob week. I'm going Rob.
Yeah, I'm going Rob as well.
I
It's not a close win, and Lamar Jackson is just going to beast out as usual. Miles Sanders is fit. Looks like he's going to start week 1. Just I have a doubt about Bell. Doesn't know if Brown's going to. Yeah, no, I've got Rob coming in fairly close, but I'm not too sure. This is one that could go either way. I think it's going to be probably one of the closer ones.
Yeah, I think it's going to be incredibly close. I think it could go either way, but I think Rob's got a solid team who they're going to put up numbers at least for the first week. And then we'll see where injuries lie. We'll see where positions land and who is putting in the better performance in the teams. And I think that's going to make a big difference at Rob's team. Once if players start to stand out on those teams, his players might drop down or they might jump up. Who knows? But I think for week one, I think Rob's going to have a good week. I think he's going to take the win this week. I have a hot take on Barry's team.
Go for
He
it.
drafted very differently than he normally does. It doesn't look like a normal Barry team. But I think that's for a reason. He's had fantastic seasons every year he's been in the Dris, but has always failed in the playoffs. And I think he's like, right, I'm doing the same thing, I'm getting to the same place, and then failing every time. I think he's changed it up intentionally to try something new, see if it changes, see if you'll have still that same good regular season, but a better playoff.
Okay.
And I like his team. I think it's a team that could do it. But it's very, very dependent on a couple of people performing. I think DK Metcalf is going to have to definitely start using his size and being the player everyone thought he was going to be. And I think Cam Newton really, really is going to have to shine for the Patriots. I think Cam has got a point to prove and he really, really wants it. But at the same time, put him under pressure and he can fumble and throw a lot of interceptions. So that New England position might be too much for him. Who knows? But other than that, I think Barry's got a solid team. They're all decent players. They're going to put up good numbers. And then even when you look at his bench, though, that's not so much. Like, you've got no one kind of on his bench that you'd want in your starting lineup. Like, his starting lineup is solid, but then, like we were saying earlier, no one really has that depth. Whereas then you look at Mark's team, I like Mark's team. I think it's solid players. Are going to put decent numbers every week. Samuel definitely needs to come out of there. Yeah, this is something I don't know if we mentioned during recording, but it looks to be that Mark has his team, but he hasn't really gone back to it. And I think he definitely needs to go back to it and have a look through. Like, he could put Cooper Cup into Samuel's position, and then he could put in the Wayward Son, and he'd have a much better team. Sammy Watkins being questionable, it's not really worth it. I think that could really bump up his team, bump up his numbers. But I like both of these teams. I think this is going to be a really good matchup. I'd be interested to see if my hot take is right. See if that is what Barry's doing, and if it pays off for him. If that is it,
I think Barry's team is solid except for Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones might even get cut from that team just because of Lenny Fournette coming in. He probably will still have a role earlier on, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lenny Fournette ends up surpassing Jones at some point. So he needs. That's the only question mark I have in that starting lineup anyway. I just don't think. Well, maybe week one, but Devontae Adams is solid. He's one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league. Cam Newton, I would not be surprised if he comes out of the blocks fast week one. Just a big middle finger to everybody, especially against Miami as well. He's got the potential to have a big week. And yeah, just Ronald Jones is the big question mark in that starting lineup for me for Barry week one.
Bruce Arians has said Jones is still, quote, our guy in the Tampa Bay backfield.
Quote, I think. I would say quote.
very reliable source right there.
Yeah. I know you know about Ronald Jones. I was looking at Mixon and Gordon, and like last year, talk about steady. I mean, Melvin Gordon last year, solid, but questionable. Joe Mixon, his numbers last year were just so solid and consistent. And as the season went on, they just got higher, and he finished off with a 32-point week. So, yeah, I'm not sure about Drew Brees this year. Obviously, he's still quality, but I think it's going to be a bit of a drop off. Mixon, I think, is going to have a better year this year than he had last year if he stays fit. Melvin Gordon's solid. Ronald Jones, you're saying he's gone. I like Marlon Mack a lot. Amari Cooper can be frustrating. He can be really frustrating. If he's double marked, he's pretty much not going to contribute. He might. You're big play dependent. Cooper, I'm worried about. He's just too sporadic. Samuel has to go. Metcalf. What do you think? Being a Green Bay fan, what do you think of Adams this year?
It's like I said, and when I was talking about it myself, it's top 3, not top 2 wide receiver in the league. He's Mr. Dependable for Rodgers, especially down in the red zone as well. I think nobody's scored more touchdowns than him, and I think in the last 3 or 4 seasons. So he's just solid, dependable. He was injured a lot last year, which kind of hampered him, but him and Rodgers have a nice mind meld that if they need to play, Rodgers is going to Adams, and more often than not, he'll make that play.
Well, the most important matchups, the tight end and the kicker matchups, Mark's got that locked down. Will Lutz and Travis Kelce will put up points.
And give them the edge on defense as well. I think Patriots will be better against Chiefs. Like I said, they're probably going to be in a shootout third tonight.
Patriots last year did some outrageous things for Michael.
Oh yeah,
that is very true.
30 points, 21 points, 28 points, 27 points, 25 points. Oh, hold on a second. Week 1, 12 points. Week 2, 41. Week 3, 19. Week 4, 30. Week 5, 21. 6, 28. 7, 27. 8, 25. It's just ridiculous.
If they can do that again, god damn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you see them doing it again, though?
I think they'll regress, but like even if you took 6, 7, 8 points out of each week, that you're still talking 14, 15 points a week. So like there's room for regression there, and that's still like 14, 15 points is still really good for a defense each week in, week out. So
this one is probably my toughest one, but I think I went for a debut win for Mark. I'll go for debut win for Mark. I think they're all going to be really close this week. Really hard to call.
Yeah.
I think that comes into like there's just no stats to base anything off. Just because week 1 it's a clean slate. There's no stats to go on as to say like who's the best defense, who's the number 1 quarterback, number 1 running back. It's just
I don't even know if
it's
starting or not.
We don't know what's good matchups for players and stuff like that yet. So, Richie, who you got?
I went for Mark as well. As I said, I think it's going to be real close, but I think he's just got those players who are going to put up those better numbers. I think Barry's team is good, but it's risky, whereas Mark's team is good and it's solid.
Barry replaces. He takes out Ronald Jones and sticks even stuck in Tevin Coleman instead there. I was on the fence, but just for a bit of controversy, I'll go Baz. Just so we're not all. Will I go for that? Will I go for that? Full. And like I said, I was pretty much on the fence. I think a lot comes down to if Barry doesn't play Ronald Jones, then I'd go Barry. But if he stick to Rojo, I'd go Mark. But I'll stick with Barry. I was leaning towards Barry. I'll stick with Barry.
Then you're the odd one out. Myself and Dell are both in agreement that all 3 rookies are going to win their first game into the playoffs.
Well, I have all 3 rookies going to the playoffs this year, so it's a rough start for Mark, but I believe obviously a big investment on Mark as well this season. So
that is true.
Jersey's on the line.
Yeah, don't be surprised if Amari Cooper drops a fucking half a point 1 week to really fucking screw him over, though. I wouldn't be surprised with that. Amari Cooper, I like him. I love him a lot. He was my boy the last 2 years, but I just got a bit tired of trying to depend on him and it just not materializing. Too many weeks with less than 10 points. Not enough weeks with over 20.
So, boys, we're going to move on to this little seg that I came up with. It's like Jenga piece. So you take this player out of that person's team and you'd expect them to collapse and be in big, big trouble. So
Found a loose one.
Good job.
we're going to start off with, we're going to follow how we went through matchups. So we'll start with Richie. Who did you pick? Did you pick anybody for your own team?
For my own team, I have a bit of a weird one. I think like most of my team, I think, are solid, dependable people who are going to put up good numbers. The one who, the controversial one, is Mark Ingram. I think he could have a make or break season. I think he could do. Personally, I think he's going to do really well. But if he falls, I think that's. It's not only that it's obviously going to do bad for the week, but it's also going to be bad for the draft. Like I picked him higher than I could have because I think he's going to have a good season. So I think that could be the one that's going to be a clincher for me.
I went with obvious one here. I went Christian McCaffrey. I think obviously you take him out, you're taking your ceiling of 25, 30 points out a week. So that's why I picked Christian McCaffrey. Dad, who did you pick for Richie?
Yeah, CMC. I mean, he's the first pick of the draft for a reason. He's definitely the best player. He scores most points. So if you take that out of your team, you know, where do you get those kind of points? You don't get them anywhere else. So I agree with what Richie says. Mark Ingram could be a nice, interesting one, but I think you take McCaffrey out of the team, it's just going to struggle. Going to struggle to make all those points back up somewhere elsewhere. So
I'm sure we'll stick with you there, Dal. Who did you pick for yourself?
I picked Dalvin Cook because he's the only running back I have that I have any confidence in. Laddie Murray could be good. If Kamara stays there, he might not be. Gibson might not work out for him. Absolutely no idea what's going to work out there. Matt Breida, he's with Miami. I mean, how much hope could we have for that? Harris, I have a little bit more hope for, but really, if you take Cook out of my team, I'm kind of boned.
Yeah. So I also went with Dalvin Cook for those same reasons. Like outside of Dalvin Cook, there's no real standout player to slot in, so I just went Dalvin Cook. Richie?
Again, I went the opposite on this one. I went for Scary Terry. I think he had a couple of really big standout games last year and a couple of really bad ones. So I think if he can up his performance and if he can get more of those games where, like his first game last year is 20 points. It was like 20, 13, 15. Then he was out for a game, but then 6 points. But then back up to 23. Then down to 1.5 points, 4 points, 7, 9, 1. But then back up to 13, 20. And then down to 10. Like, if he can go back up to those higher up scores, get more targets, I think he could be a good key player and a high point scorer for that.
I mean, week 7 against Miami, he still only had 4 receptions. He had roughly the same amount of snaps, same amount of targets. We got 23 points because he got those 4 catches. He got 2 touchdowns. Half his receptions were in the red zone. So,
yeah. Well, that's I think if he could get more receptions, I think he could be a real threat this season.
3 touchdowns in the first 3 weeks, and then he had 2 in that, and then he had nothing until week 14, where he started coming back a little bit, 13 and a 20. So more of those type of games, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games out of the whole season where he scored 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 touchdowns. I think I need over 10 touchdowns from him this year. I think that's what I need from him. But I think if I lose Scary Terry, though, I've got the Pontiac Bandit to come in. He might be all right. Who knows? I don't really know. But, I take your point. He could be the difference between me being all right and having a good season.
Yeah, so we'll move on to myself now. So I suppose a lot of people, but I guess Saquon here is the obvious answer, but I think between opportunity, J.K. Dobbins, I think is going to come on really well. Sony Michel, I think if Saquon went down, I do have a bit of cover there. So I went Chris Godwin. If he went down, that Tyler Lockett's only really after that. I don't Stephon Diggs might turn out to be decent, kind of relying a lot on Alan Lazard being the number 2 in Green Bay and Manny Sanders doing well in New Orleans. So I think that's why I personally went with Chris Godwin, because I think if Saquon went down, I do have the potential for decent cover there, because Montgomery should be the number 1 in Chicago. Sonny Michel should be the number 1 in New England. And then J.K. Dobbins, I think, no offense to Richie, but I think he's going to take your man Ingram's job at some point this season. So I think he's going to come on well, and there's a reason why I nicknamed him the league winner, because I think he's going to be big in the second half of the season. So I went Chris Godwin. So what do you guys pick?
Yeah, I Godwin as well. So just for the sake of keeping it interesting, I'm going to flip it over to Hayden Hurst. He's moved to Atlanta. They sling the ball. So outside Julio Jones, you have a lot catching the ball. I think that could be a good move for him. It could be a good move for Atlanta, and I could see him sort of making a huge step forward this year. So I think he might make the difference. I think if you take Chris Godwin out, I think 14 points is not enough for him on a weekly basis. I think he's going to get more than that. He's got Tom Brady throwing the ball to him. If it clicks with him, he could be 32 points against Atlanta with a quarterback that just couldn't really throw the ball last year. Winston couldn't really throw the ball without throwing an interception last year. So yeah, I think Chris Godwin is an interesting point. Hayden Hurst could be a big player for you this year. And if you lose Hayden Hurst, then you could be looking at 3 points a week in a tight end position. And he might be getting you doing what Mike Andrews did last year for Baltimore. He might be getting those touchdowns in the end zone, because if they don't throw the ball to Julio Jones, it'll be to the big tight end. So I think that could be one to watch this year for you anyway.
Who you got, Richie?
I think Saquon.
I think the obvious choice, all right.
Yeah, that's just it. It's the obvious. Excuse me. It's the one that stands out. Like, he had a couple of good games last year, but he had a couple of really bad games last year as well. So I think if he plays really good, he could do a lot for you. But as you said yourself earlier, if he gets shut down by a defense because they know he's the number 1 target, I don't know what way it's going to go.
Yeah, well, it's going to have to wait and see. So we'll move on to Shauna here. So you got Richie for this.
So I think Edelman. I mentioned it earlier. I think if he does have that connection with Cam that he says he has, I think it'll be fantastic. I think he can do a lot for him. I think he can put up some big numbers. But if he doesn't have that connection, if he's just being Julian Edelman and joking about it, I think he's not going to do great this year. He's quite small for a wide receiver, and traditionally Cam Newton had some pretty big wide receivers, so he might be a bit of a literal small target.
You got to go there, Dale. Here you go.
I think Aaron Jones. I think that could make or break her. If Aaron Jones, where is he? What is his numbers? Like 46 points against Dallas, 37 points against Kansas, 29. Like, he finished the season so strongly as well. 29 points, 17, 27, 17. So he could get monster points every week, but he's also under a little bit of pressure. So I think he could. Yeah, I think he could be the difference. I'm expecting more from him than the 16 points this week. But if he loses the job, then it could really break Shauna's back. So I'm going for Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I'll stick on the running back team. I went Austin Eckler. I think if he is the player that he was last year when Melvin Gordon was injured or was holding out the first couple of weeks, he was on fire the first couple of weeks of last season. Like, he was putting out 25, 30 point gains. But I think such a big question marks this year. I was mentioning earlier on, Billy Rivers isn't there anymore. Are people going to respect the quarterback as much as they did Billy Rivers last year? Like, Austin Eckler could be facing a lot of stack boxes, but he does do his best work in the passing game, so he could easily get points otherwise. So I think take Austin Eckler out, and if he isn't as good as he was last year when Melly G wasn't there, then she could struggle with that pick. But if he is as good as he was when Melly G wasn't there the first couple of weeks, then I think she could have. He'd probably end up being her number one running back on the team this year. So
35 points in week 1. Eckler had. That's insane numbers.
True.
So we'll quickly move on here. So I have for Michael, his thing is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think there's just so much riding on that pick this year. Do you think we mentioned it earlier on? Talked about it. He was the number one overall. He was Michael's number one overall pick, so big pressure on there. David Johnson, is he going to do it? Is he going to be back to where he was 3-4 years ago? Michael doesn't have great depth. He'd be relying on Kareem Hunt. For a fella who drafted a lot of running backs, he's kind of looking a little threadbare out there in that position. But yeah, I'm going with Clyde Edwards-Helaire as his Jenga piece, because if that pick doesn't pay off, then it could hurt. It could have a Jenga effect for the rest of his team.
Yeah, I agree. He's a rookie, he's untested. There's a lot resting on him doing really well.
I don't think you can look past CEH. Yeah, he made the call. It was a big call, and we'll see if it pays off. And it might very well pay off for him. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But if he turns out like Damian Williams, if he turns out like the Damian Williams pick last year, then it's just going to go. It's going to be a horrible season for him. So yeah, I'm going to CEH as well.
All right, so Richie, who you got for Hannah?
Odd one. I think it's going to be the Saints defense who could possibly be her downfall. Like I said earlier, I think if Tom Brady decides to go absolutely ham for that first week, it's one of the only positions where she can get minus points. So it could literally take points away from her team.
Fair enough. Dale, who you got?
Dak Prescott, being touted as top 3-4 quarterback this year, could make that step up this year to really big numbers week in, week out. I don't think he's going to burst, but I think he's just going to be so good for her this year that if you take him out, she's got Drew Lock in reserve. I don't know. I just think Dak Prescott's going to be awesome this year, and if you take him out, it's going to be very hard to replace him. So the risk of an obvious pick, Dak Prescott.
Fair enough. I went Derrick Henry. I think running back is the one position she has not really any depth in. She's really relying on Jonathan Taylor to do well. So if someone like Derrick Henry went down, or he just wasn't as good as he was this last season and a half, where he's just been putting up insane numbers. He's been averaging over 100 yards a game. I think if you take him out, or if he regresses, then she could be in trouble at that running back position. So I'm going Derrick Henry.
Finished the season with 43.6 points, Derrick Henry. Against Houston. Insane numbers. Who have we got next?
Quickly, we've got the two Johns. So for John Hand, I went with an obvious one. Just went with Zeke. Just, again, if you take him out, you're taking out 25, 30 points ceiling a week, which would really affect his team, I think. Because there's so big question marks at wide receiver. He needs Odell Beckham, T.Y. Hilton, or A.J. Green to be the war in their past selves a couple of years ago. So I think there's big question marks. There, Zeke's probably going to end up being not putting this team on his back. He might end up being put in those positions some weeks if those three lads don't perform or have 4 weeks. So I went Zeke Elliott.
Yeah, I said the same. For the same reason, he's the only kind of guarantee of putting up big numbers each week. All the rest are pretty risky. So without that, I think, he could suffer pretty bad.
And Dal?
Yeah, Zeke's so solid. I mean, every year he goes in the top 3 or 4 picks. And for a reason. I think Kenyon Drake finished last season off really well and could have a better season this year. He could even be more regular and more solid. So I'm going to go with Zeke, but I think if he loses Kenyon Drake, I think Drake's going to be putting up close to 20 points a week if he stays fit and if things go well. And then you've got, maybe 7 or 8 points on his bench. I don't think Bryce Love's going to get too much, too much effective stuff. He might get short downs. He might get, some workhorse stuff, but he's not going to get anything like Gibson's going to get in the long game. So a running back, if you take Zeke out, yeah, you're just losing so much. I have to go with Zeke.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Johners, we'll stick with you, Dell. Who have you got for him?
Kamara's so dodgy at the minute. He's so up in the air.
Yeah, I think I don't think that there could be another one other than that because of that.
Yeah, I think I'm Kamara as well, just for those reasons.
Yeah. I think Kittle's going to be putting up points every week, and again, a tight end. If he loses Kittle, he's losing probably 12.
Yeah, I consider Kittle as well.
So Kamara, Kittle, for me, it's Kamara because he probably put up more each week if he was fit.
Yeah. Like George Kittle, he's solid. There's not too much of a question mark over him unless he gets some sort of weird injury. Whereas Kamara, there's a literal question mark over his time.
Yeah, and the question is, how bad are his injuries? Not is he injured?
Yeah.
So
it's how bad, not are they there?
You're looking at the last 4 weeks, 13, 15, 15, and 11 points. And then 20 points against Green Bay for Kittle. That's towards the end of the season. I think at the last 5 games, he had a 1.9 in one of them. Everything else was double figures. So... but yeah, you take Kamara out. Jesus, last year I remember he was beasting out for Michael for a while.
For Robin Connor next to him. Robin Connor's next, yeah. So,
Lamar Jackson, yeah.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah. I was against picking quarterbacks for everybody else just because I think there's just so much depth out of the way. Well, not so much depth, but I think there's always some guy out there week on week you could pick that has a favorable matchup against a defense. So, but just because Rob invested so much in Lamar and he is investing so much in Lamar this year to carry this team, I think it has to be Lamar is the only choice for picking a piece for Rob.
Plus, he's bringing the possibility of regular 30 burgers.
Yeah,
he could have more fucking running yards than most of my running backs at the end of the season.
I'd say that for a lot of running backs.
He could rush more than most of the running backs, as well as sling the ball, and he's got good targets. He's got Mike Andrews there. Hollywood Brown's put on a lot of muscle in the season. So Lamar Jackson's going to have a beast of a season, and if you take him out of that team, you're really struggling to make those points up. I've got Michael Thomas, obviously enough for Connor.
Yeah, I think we might all be in agreement on that one as well, just because Michael Thomas has to put this team on his back because
They got a strong back, Michael.
Because Kamara's back is broken.
Jesus Christ, Michael Thomas's numbers are so solid. Just consistently in the double figures.
So you had Mickey Thomas as well, Richie, I assume, yeah?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Same
That
reason.
just leave.
So,
So we on to the
last
last two guys.
Yeah.
for Barry, I don't think it's any question. It's Cam Newton. Like, if Cam Newton wants to do what he says he's going to do, that's going to blow up and that's going to score big points for Baz. Cam Newton hits the bed the way Cam Newton can, then that's going to ruin a season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of controversy, I would be going Cam Newton. I think he's very important, but I think Devontae Adams' season could really affect him. I'm just thinking if Rodgers losing any power on that arm, he's losing out any sort of long targets or any big sort of plays. So it's hard to know. If Adams has a bad season, I think he could be struggling to replace him.
I went I think Melvin Gordon. I thought Melvin Gordon is the obvious choice here because you take Melvin Gordon out of that team, like who's he got at running back?
Nobody really. Yeah, it's true.
I don't think he's relying that much on Cam Newton. Just because he has Kyler Murray on the bench, I think Kyler Murray is going to have a very good season. So I think he's
fair.
Got a very decent backup option with Cam if Cam doesn't work out. So that's why I didn't pick Cam. Devonta Adams is fair as well. But I just thought Melvin Gordon was the obvious choice because you take Melvin Gordon out. Like, who's he got? He's got Ronald Jones, Tevin Coleman, and Anthony McFarland. That's all he's got. So
a wide receiver is Higgins and Lamb. Lamb's probably the better option there, but I know he's got on a wide receiver either.
So then, last but not least, who have we got for Mark? I have, again, I suppose it's an obvious choice, but Joe Mixon. I think, again, if you take Joe Mixon out, he's got a lot of question marks at death. Rashad Penny's injured. Kerryon Johnson, he's got DeAndre Swift breathing down his neck. Marlon Mack has Jonathan Taylor breathing down his neck. So just, again, I think it's Joe. I thought Joe Mixon just because he will, again, might have to put this team on his back some weeks. So go on Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I went for the same. I think Joe Mixon, he's the solid guy. He puts some numbers every week, and you take away those solid numbers every week, it could collapse the season.
Again, yeah, I think Joe Mixon's going to do better this year than last year. Going to take a big step up, so the points that he's going to put up on the board could be a lot more than what they're even predicting. And if you take that out of the team, I think Mixon's a hell of a pick. So I think he's probably going to be one of the running backs that I'm looking to this year to really push on.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't dislike Kerryon Johnson, but he's no Joe Mixon. So yeah, Joe Mixon for me.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what we say for this next week. Once we have a bit more reliable, see how people are performing with full data to back it up.
Yeah, something to go on and not our imaginations.
Exactly. Just on wild guesses.
Ifs and buts.
Yeah. And so that's it, boys. I think we can wrap up with that. So,
go get some food.
This has been going on long enough, I think, as is. So I think we might just wrap it up there for this week. So we'll obviously just have to wait and see. I'm very excited for this week now. We're finally getting football back. So
a couple more days and we got it.
A couple of more days, yeah.
I got Red Zone this season. It's going to be amazing.
I'm going to have to get a long nap in Thursday afternoon so I can stay awake all Thursday night. But it'll be fun. So.
All right. Till next week, boys. To everybody, thanks for listening. So, peace out from me anyway. So.
Yep. Have a good one all.
See y'all soon.